from the crypt.
Hello, boys and ghouls. Welcome to episode 93 of Dads from the Crypt, a Tales from the Crypt podcast. My name is Jason. Tonight, I'm joined by Mando.
Hello.
Hello. Jody may or may not show up. He's got some teen drama going on at home. But tonight, we are joined by Freddy from Knights of the Living podcast.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. I'm a huge fan of Tales from the Crypt, so this is exciting for me. I'm pumped.
Excellent. So tell us about Night Living podcast.
We were talking about this actually just before we started, but we started back in 2006, in April of 2006. So we just celebrated 17 years, which is hard to believe.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's so nuts to think it's been going that long because it was a lark. It was one of those things. I was a failed musician. I had a bunch of gear, and podcasts were a relatively new idea at all. You know, there was only a handful of podcasts that were not about like computer stuff. You know what I mean? Like it was right when people first started saying, hey, we could do other shows. It's about things that aren't just computer stuff and put it on an RSS feed. And my wife was a big fan of this show called Keith and the Girl, which is a comedy show where they interview stand-ups in New York, and it's hosted by two former party clowns. And it's so fun. They're still doing it too. And
I haven't heard of that. That sounds cool.
Oh, you should check it out. It's great. They have great guests. They have a lot of personality. They're very, very New York. Even Keith, who's from Pennsylvania, ironically, you would never guess he's not a native New Yorker when you hear him talk. But they're hilarious. They were an inspiration because like we just heard how much fun they were having. And my wife was like, we should do a podcast with all that gear, because I was actually on my way to sell a lot of this stuff. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe we'll try it out. And we were like, what do we do though? Like, what would we even talk about? And we're like, well, what's something that all of our friends have in common? Because we'd want to bring our friends on and hang out and talk. And we were like, horror movies is the one thing we all have in common. We're all huge horror fans. And we were like, well, that's it. And Amy came up, with that basic concept. So she really birthed that. And at the time, there was only one other horror podcast called Pickled Embryo that I knew of. And then there was The Infested Sound, which was a couple of guys that worked at Arby's, which was great. Yeah, it was a great, I was actually more interested half the time when they were talking about like what a shitty shift they had at Arby's, you know?
That's funny. I used to work at Arby's back in high school.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's so funny. But yeah, man, there was like those early days, it was just a handful. So literally everybody got to kind of at least was aware of who each other was, you know what I mean? Because it was like literally like a dozen people total that were doing anything with horror podcasting. And from there, like I've watched, like the relevance, of course, back then when you're the only game in town, like you get a bunch of listeners and stuff, whoever the tech savvy horror fans are would find you. So we had this huge listenership, but now there's like 1,000 horror podcasts. So, it gets diluted, but you know what? I wouldn't want it the other way around. I love that there's so many out there and that people are just having fun talking about this stuff. So it's been really, really cool to watch all this stuff explode.
Nice.
I think in a roundabout way, it's kind of fun because Bloody Good Horror was the first horror podcast I discovered because I was working for Apple and just wanted something to listen to on the bus. And I was getting into podcast. And I'm like, I'm a pro wrestling geek, as everyone who listens to the show knows. And I was listening to pro wrestling podcasts. I'm like, oh, I also love horror. There has to be horror podcasts. But I think it's kind of funny because I think they got started because they heard you guys, and we got started because of them. So it's kind of like that lineage, which is really cool. And I've definitely listened to you guys before. And your podcast is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thanks, man. I it's like became like it replaced, I think, what for religious people, like having church or whatever, that idea of just a place you go every week. That's like, where you see and talk to people that, or you feel like are really kind of are in your community. And the horror community is the best. Yeah, it's that Cheers vibe. I love that. I mean, I'd not to say that every horror podcaster I've met over the years has been cool. Like 99% of them have been easy right from the get-go, instantly get along. So it's a community I've always, getting into it, it became home in a way that I thought it was just gonna be like a random goof, that a few of our friends would hear it, and then it really became a sense of home of being a part of it.
Tell me about your Tales from the Crypt fandom.
Oh, this goes back to like before I had HBO. My cousin who lived up the street from me had HBO, and I could get up there and see episodes of Tales from the Crypt. And just to me, as a kid, the perfect show. Like I had already, experienced like Twilight Zones from my dad, and in some episodes of The Outer Limits, the original like 60s black and white series. And to get to the point where where there was something like that, but it was so much more crass in like a great way. Like, so it kind of was like this, it reminded me a lot of, I kind of feel like the vibe of Tales from the Dark Side, that sort of like irreverence. I really love. And I love that, like, it had that retro that I didn't quite understand yet as a kid, but like I understood it from in as much as like how that retro vibe was turning up in like movies like Back to the Future and Stand By Me, where they were looking back at the 50s and 60s the way, kids are looking back at the 80s and 90s now. And I know that there was something about that combination of that era through the lens of the 80s, like the era of the 50s and 60s, looking back through the lens of the 80s and recreating these stories, but doing it in so much 80s excess and bad taste and all that. That's what I love. I love that so much. But I'm a mega Crypt fan. I've watched every episode of this show several times. It's even the bad ones I like.
You have a favorite?
Yeah, Fitting Punishment's my absolute favorite.
Yeah.
I thought that was really terrifying. I'm a huge fan of the comic too.
Yeah.
So like The Thing from the Grave, that was such like watching Bernie Wrightson stuff come to life, So like that one, and Miguel Ferrer is so good in that.
Oh, yeah. Terry Hatcher.
Yeah, and Terry Hatcher. Cutting Cards is a favorite.
Cards, yeah.
Yeah, that might be my favorite.
Well,
it depends on the week, but that one might be my favorite.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It depends on what I'm in the mood. If I'm in the mood to see a really great performance, like an episode like Cutting Cards would be it. But if I'm like in an effects mood, I would rather see something like The Thing from the Grave.
Definitely.
So like I think besides Fitting Punishment, my almost tied for all-time favorite is what was it called? It's the one with Morton Downey Jr. Television Terror.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
That
was
one so
kind of ahead of its time. Kind of really ahead of its time with what it was doing with like the whole meta thing, and I'd like that episode.
Yeah, like, and I hadn't seen Ghost Watch, which is the BBC. They're kind of War of the Worlds for 80s Halloween kids, right? Like I hadn't seen it at that point. So now when I go back and those two, I'm like, oh, this is the same idea, that you have this reality show where the shit gets real, this whole concept of, and for it to be Morton Downey Jr., a face I knew from trash TV already, because that's all we watched growing up, was just garbage all the time. And that's
80s TV all encapsulated.
Yeah, so more to see him come into a Tales from the Crypt episode in your like 10, 11-year-old brain, it like gives it some sort of realism, It makes it scarier somehow, even though
that's a really scary one.
Yeah, but as an adult, you're like, this is so. If I were an adult knowing Morton Downey Jr. and was sitting down to watch Tales from the Crypt, you would be laughing. The comedy was lost on me a lot of the time because I always was terrified of it.
Well, yeah,
but that's why I loved it.
But that's like
house stuff.
That's a lot of good TV. Is like you can get on different levels. Like there's meta humor you can get from as an adult, as a kid. You can get the horror, and then it's very layered, which is always good.
It's fantastic.
Is there still trash TV on during the days? Like if kids have to stay home from school, can they still watch like Price is Right and
they just watch YouTube?
Okay.
You can still see Price is Right. I think the new trash TV are judge shows though, for the most part.
Oh, okay. I remember on Amazon they had a judge show with one of the Buseys.
Oh my, really? Was it not Gary Busey?
It might have been Gary Busey, but somehow, even with this wild cast of characters, it was like the most boring thing I've ever seen in my life.
That's a disappointment.
All right. Well, let's hop into it. Tonight we're talking season 6, episode 13. This is Comes the Dawn. This came out on January 11th, 1995. Mando, you get the honor, the privilege of doing the plot synopsis.
So Jody's house smells like Teen Spirit right now, and he's dealing with some teen issues. I wanted to work that in so bad, and I'll even like Nirvana, but so I'm taking this recap off of a tvtropes.com. So tvtropes.org. So I cannot be credited for the recap. But here we go. Colonel Thomas Parker, played by Michael Ironside, and Sergeant Burroughs, veterans of Operation Desert Storm, arrive at a bar in rural Alaska during a brutal snowstorm. When they express an interest in doing some illegal big game hunting, Mona, the bartender, calls the sheriff's office to turn them in, prompting Burroughs to kill her. The two men try to enlist Mona's ex-girlfriend, Jerry, who's a former game warden, as a hunting guide. Jerry turns them down, but Parker notices a Purple Heart medal pinned to a teddy bear in her room. It's a weird place for a Purple Heart, I'm just saying. But it's playing under status as a fellow veteran of Desert Storm to secure her help. Jerry takes Parker and Burroughs to an abandoned weather station that grizzly bears have started using as a hibernation site. She explains that the building had been boarded up after children in the area suddenly started disappearing. As Parker scouts the area, Jerry learns from Burroughs that the two men are trafficking in black market animal parts. I think they all also offer like $100 to help her out, which is like, dude, like who's gonna try to hunt a grizzly bear for $100? But she agrees.
You couldn't get Steve-O to do that.
Right.
Well, there used to be a thing where a guy I work with, ex-Marine, they used to go to Alaska once a year to hunt polar bears. To hunt them, in this group, you had to hunt them with hunting knives. You couldn't use guns. Jeez. And I was like, how the fuck are you going to kill a polar bear? He goes, oh, no. We just go up there and pretend like we're going to hunt. We just hang out in a cabin and get drunk for 3 days. The hunting part is the joke. That's what they tell their wives and everybody else they're going to hunt polar bears. But it was a real excursion they paid money to go to. It was basically a guy renting his cabin out. And the joke was for hunting purposes, because that way it's a business expenditure. But anyhow,
it's a lot less depressing for the Coca-Cola fan set, too.
Yes. But what's crazy, those polar bears are like the most vicious bears in the world, because all they do is eat meat. They don't forage at all. So if they see you in, why would you ever be that close to a polar bear? Well, they see you, you're pretty much dead. It's going to kill you.
They're a scary bear.
A terrifying video on YouTube of a guy who basically was put into a bear-proof glass encasement, and these polar bears are trying to get in. Oof. And I get you're in this case that's been tested, but I would not have the nerve to do that. I'm just saying.
It's crazy you should say that, because when I was a kid, I had nightmares about falling into the polar bear exhibit at our zoo.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's because I couldn't get out. Like the sides were like slick, and I was just like, I had nightmares about that.
That's crazy.
Scary.
I wonder, like, because everyone always says your dreams have hidden meaning. I wonder what the hidden meaning and that would be, because sometimes I've had a dream and like, okay, that makes sense. Other times I'm like, what the fuck was that? Like I'm trying to build a doghouse with someone I haven't met and I haven't seen in 25 years. Like, what does this mean?
I think I'm just scared of polar bears. I don't think there was any super deep meaning. There could be, but I think it was just that.
No, they're terrifying, but I would cuddle the shit out of a cub. I'm just gonna say, like,
right, same.
So
yeah, cute. I'm the same way. Like, I'll play with like dangerous animals when they're babies. I've been lucky. I've gotten to play with like a lion cub when I was a little kid, because we had a neighbor who was dating an exotic animal trainer, which I'm sure it was like unethical as hell what he was doing.
Tiger King.
Yeah, that's what I think about now when I think back on it. But then it was really cool. Like it was like playing with a dog. It was on their front lawn. It was crazy. It's so white trash.
I'm super jealous.
It was cool. It was a nice memory.
All I want to do is pet a small bear cub and an otter, both, but not at the same time. That'd be weird if they're in the same area together. But
bears and otters hang out together.
Do they? Like maybe they do. I don't know. When they're little.
I've been to a lot of gay bars with friends. And I always see bears and otters hanging out together.
Okay, I got to pause this now because I know the term bear. Which is like, if anybody wonders what a bear is, just watch a YouTube video and look at Jason. And I'm not saying he is a bear. He has the characteristics of what a bear would be.
Right.
Not
what is an otter?
Oh, otter's just, I think, a smaller bear.
Oh, okay.
In as far as the slang goes for the look, I think it's just a slimmer bear. I think.
Oh.
I'm not sure. I'm out of touch because
I don't want to Google this.
I haven't been around I haven't been out of my house in so long, and I can't keep up with the ever changing terminology out there for all the young people.
The term
All right.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the plot synopsis.
This part where Jason,
Bears and otters.
there's Jason. All righty.
We've gone way off.
So anyhow, she offers to help Burroughs kill Parker and start her own partnership with him, not realizing that Parker has already returned and is listening to the conversation. He has found the severed head of a grizzly and believes that Jerry is trying to trick them. How metal is it to behead a bear if you're trying to fight it? Like, fuck, crazy. Burroughs holds Jerry at gunpoint, but she flees when a noise distracts them, turning off the station's generator to plunger the soldiers into darkness. As the noise continues, Parker and Burroughs stumble across a room filled with bloody, fleshy cocoons suspended from the ceiling, which is a really cool scene. They also find a young girl asking for their help to get home. She reveals herself to be a vampire and flees, just as Jerry returns and confronts Parker with the truth about her purple heart. It was received posthumously. Parker had mistakenly killed her and everyone else in her unit via an artillery strike. Having been undead ever since, she has been living among the vampires that infest the area, the cause of the missing children and the dead bear, and she's been waiting for a chance to seek revenge against Parker for killing her, which is also really weird because she has to hope that this guy comes to Alaska to kill bears.
Right? Yeah,
It's really random that the guy who happened to cause a strike against her.
It needs a prequel just with her laying all the groundwork for this.
For years and years and years, like,
yeah.
Fuck, I hope he gets here soon.
He was like sending coupons for
free
Alaska in the mail.
Oh my god, that'd have been amazing. Like cold calling him, like your car's extended warranty's expired. Also, do you want to come kill some bears in Alaska?
That's like in the second I Know What You Did Last Summer movie where they give him the trip to wherever it is by like misquoting the capital of Brazil.
Oh god. Okay, so the vampires leave her alone because her blood is inedible because it's been poisoned by her heavy exposure to chemical weapons, which I thought was kind of actually a really, really nice touch and a callback to Desert Storm. Because for any younger people listening, a lot of what happened at Desert Storm was that a lot of soldiers came back with a lot of health issues due to their exposure to chemicals. Very, very sad. Also, off topic, sorry, Jason, but very sad how we handle veteran healthcare in this country too. Like we should really be helping people out. But
that's true. I'll second that. My dad was a Vietnam veteran who was one of the Agent Orange.
Wow,
which is the same concept where he was, he developed all these health problems like after Vietnam. And you'll see these bumper stickers sometimes that say, "I was killed in Vietnam. I just haven't died yet."
Oh, wow.
And those are in reference to the Agent Orange exposure. Ooh. So yeah, that's shit's our government does some nasty shit to our soldiers, man.
That shit gave me goosebumps. That's deep. Boy, that's rough. Yeah. I mean, and my uncle was a Vietnam vet, and a lot of what was funny, motorcycle club started up after Vietnam because of all these soldiers who felt betrayed by their country, by their government, that wanted people like them just to be around and do something different. Because the whole era, I mean, we just don't treat our soldiers very well. Like we want them to go protect. It's a whole nother story. I don't support war. War is the worst thing ever, and there should be no war. But I still support the people that usually signed up because they wanted to go to college, but then got shipped somewhere where they had to put their lives on the line. So I respect the people that had to do that. Yeah. Anyhow, back to our fun little Tales of the Crypt episode. In a panic, Burroughs shoots Parker, then abandons him to be eaten by the vampires as he flees to Jerry's cabin. Along the way, he gets his foot caught in one of his own bear traps. He plans to finish off Jerry, not like that, and the vampires once the sun comes up. A digital clock in the cabin reads 10:03 a.m., even though the sky is still dark, just as Mona, now a vampire herself, ambushes him. Burroughs impales her through the chest just as Jerry returns with the other vampires in tow. She casually explains that due to how far north they are, the sun will not rise for another 2 months. Jerry sicks to horror on the traitorous Burroughs, watching in satisfaction as he's torn to pieces, her death having been avenged, and the end.
Bravo.
Do you think by chance this might have been whoever wrote 30 Days of Night may have seen this episode and been inspired by it.
I'm wondering. Well, either that or the original comic,
Yeah.
but we can get into that.
Steve Niles, right?
Yes, Steve Niles, that's his name. Sorry.
Yeah, I looked up the timeline of like when those comics came out. I think they came out in the early 2000s, so it's very possible.
It's a great concept. I mean, like, you're just like saying, I want to write myself out of the corner of having to deal with 8 hours of darkness every day, you know, versus all this sunlight, and I'm writing a vampire story. I would be like, where can I not have to deal with this sunrise problem?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And it's terrifying, right? The idea of the fact that, like I said at the very end, he's waiting for the sunlight because he knows sunlight kills vampires, and then to find out it's never going to come. Like, what a like it would just sink you. Like, it'd be over. You'd be emotionally dead after that. Like,
Swift kick in the balls.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's even worse in the comic, but we'll get into that too. I'll also mention the amazing wraparound with the Crypt Keeper on this, where he's got his feet propped up on the beach. He's got a beautiful woman next to him.
I love his little
if
feet.
you have a foot fetish for the Crypt Keeper, this is definitely the episode you're going to kind of rewind a lot.
That's 2 weeks of feet in a row we got from the Crypt Keeper.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. His feet are adorable. They're like one of the cutest things I've ever seen, you know, when they're in frame, you know, just in the foreground.
I just think Crypt Keeper is just the coolest idea of all time, because like when I was a kid, I was terrified of the Crypt Keeper. That opening, I remember we used to watch the episodes when the coffin opened up. I'd be like, oh, fuck, he's gonna pop out. It's gonna scare me. Maybe he won't pop out this time. But when you watch the episodes, he's just like this guy that likes to have fun. He likes to have a good time.
He's a very gentle character. Like, really, honestly, he's very cuddly. When you go back and look at all this,
well, he gets a little bullied here. A guy kicks some sand on him, and he's like,
see,
says he doesn't even weigh 98 pounds.
Yeah,
yeah, that's right.
I got excited for a second. I'm like,
saying,
wait, do we actually have a weight for the Crypt Keeper? Like,
yeah. I love that line though. For anyone who didn't watch it, he goes, "Yeah, I'm not some 98-pound weakling. I don't even weigh 98 pounds."
I'm like, I bet he probably weighs 30 pounds. That's the tops.
All right, we'll get to you, Mando. All right, Freddy, why don't you start us off? What did you think of this episode?
This is not one of the better Tales from the Crypt episodes. However, it definitely has like some real silver linings. Even a bad Tales from the Crypt episode is a good episode of television, I think, especially 80s television. Because Michael Ironside, I could watch him do anything.
Yeah.
I think there's something about he brings intensity like crazy to everything he does. And it pays off sometimes as scary, sometimes as funny. Like, it all depends on you insert Ironside. It's a wild card effect on the rest of whatever you're making, I think. Like, if you watch, like, was it Visiting Hours, where he's the crazy misogynistic killer who, it's like Halloween 2, where he stalks the radio lady at the hospital. Like, he's so intense in that and scary. And then in this, he's so over the top and comical, but he's doing the same performance, you know, Starship Troopers, same performance. It's like, you know, the most, like, salt's the most versatile spice or whatever. It's like Ironside, you put it in anything, it's going to be different though. Every time.
It's interesting because he was in the previous episode, The Sacrifice, and we hated that episode with a passion.
Which one is The Sacrifice?
It's the one where he's like the insurance broker and they're trying to blackmail a guy, but he keeps getting double crossed.
Okay, I don't remember that one very well.
Season 2, I believe.
Yeah, do they have the psychic in that one?
No, that's no.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of a different.
Something about like a prenup.
Okay.
It's not a very good episode. I think this is a much better one. But yeah, keep going.
Susan Tyrrell, who, if you're a John Waters fan, you know, like, she's in tons of John Waters stuff, but she's those rotten teeth as that bartender Mona. I love that. I was a little iffy about them casting Vivian Wu as an Inuit when she's Chinese, and it felt kind of like maybe that was a little lazy. Especially because she has a very thick Chinese accent, and it reminds you every time she speaks that she's not from this area, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of in, you know, from the 80s and 90s. Basically, if you had a tan,
right?
Any ethnic role, and it's, you know, it's we joke out here in Vegas because we have a lot of population with a lot of El Salvadorians, and we always joke that, like, if you have a tan, you're just Mexican. Everybody, like, nobody ask where you're from. They just assume you're Mexican.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
casting. That's like that used to be the joke in casting, like the guys who would say, "I play Italian, but I also play Mexican and Asian." Like, I always thought that was, and that was more. It was kind of a joke, but it was also the truth. Like if you watch 70s and 80s TV, you're gonna see like generic ethnic casting all the time, and this is guilty of that. So
the vaguely ethnic type.
Yeah, and we joke about it, but it's good how far we've come to where people are now actually trying to cast the right people for the right roles to make it somewhat accurate.
It's
because
totally
Emma Stone
different.
can play everything.
What's that?
yeah.
Emma Stone can play anything.
Just plug her in there, just like C. Thomas Howell. Watch Soul Man. The other thing I thought was really cool is that I looked up that the little girl, she was the voice of Sally on some of the Charlie Brown episodes, and I'm a huge Charlie Brown fan, so I thought that was cool. So
I think she also had a bit part in one of the Freddy's Nightmare episodes.
Yeah, I saw that she was listed there too. I just think it's fun to think of those child actor resumes, how varied they can be.
Yeah,
it's a big swing from Charlie Brown to Tales from the Crypt. But this is a fun episode.
Nice. All right, Mando.
Yeah, not the best episode, but I liked it overall. I like the idea. It was very bleak and the way it was shot with all the dark tones, because it really gave you that sense of just darkness and kind of the overpowering darkness of the vampires coming in. Well, I love the makeup of the vampires.
Yeah.
I'm always like kind of weird because it's funny because in a lot of vampire movies you'll have these vampires that look like they've never aged and they're beautiful people, and then somehow these ones that are like these cavernous. Oh, What We Do in the Shadows does that with Peter. How they're all like these normal looking people, and Peter is like the Nosferatu vampire.
I love
He's
that.
like 1,000 years old.
Yeah, I actually really love it. I love that trope, and I love it. There's all these different, or like how I like how they did it in Renfield. Actually, no spoilers, but how they dealt with his decomposition as a vampire. But I really love that. And I love that the poachers in the end. Everyone hates poachers. Poachers are just the worst. Like really, like you're gonna go kill an animal with a giant gun for sport? Fuck off. I think we all get joy when we read a headline that's like "Lion eats poacher." We're like, that guy deserved it. Like, fuck that guy.
Should really come to like the feel good news this week.
Yeah.
Well, poachers got their faces bitten off.
Or there's a story about how a poacher killed a lion and then like his wife killed the poacher and ate it. It's like, fuck yeah. Like, I mean, granted, the lion should never die in the first place, but it happens. But I saw this episode is really kind of, even with the vampires, it's kind of man versus nature. And even if you look at like the whole Desert Storm aspect of it too, with chemical weapons and infecting her, so her blood was inedible to vampires, it's still kind of man versus nature. And in this case, as it should be, nature usually wins.
Yeah.
Kind of like we're seeing with global warming right now. We're just have a downer of an episode. We're just gonna go like dystopian nightmare.
Them throwing the whole Desert Storm bit in. This episode for 26 minutes, it sure does try to cram a lot of shit into 26 minutes.
Yes.
I like they did not need that whole Desert Storm subs. They could have come up with something that would just kept everything tightly in there. It felt like a lot of shortcuts.
It might have been time period just based on early 90s and Desert Storm was still fresh in everybody's minds.
Well,
and I wonder if they do that sometimes just to get people talking about it. And this is a good question because Jason's like best friends with Outcats. So
we'll definitely ask him. Yeah, I definitely feel like they could have kept the Desert Storm, but not have the whole relation like that he ordered the strike that killed her. That seemed a little bit too far.
Yes, I thought at first they were just going to bond over the fact they were both in Desert Storm.
Which is fine. Which
would make sense, right? Like I'd imagine if I meet someone else that does jujitsu, we're immediately like, okay, we can talk for 35 seconds. So I immediately want to see him have that connection. But you're right. When they went back to her being part of his platoon, that got a little bit convoluted.
Do you feel that's like a case of the writer not necessarily trusting the audience to allow for her to be like, a man like you did this to me, and that's not enough? They're like, it has to be blatantly him. Yes, it has to be the same guy.
Probably.
I think so, but I think there should have also been enough of him being an antagonist of just he already killed someone, so we've already proven he's not a good guy.
Yeah.
So and he's coming here for the sole purpose of poaching animals. I think that was enough of an antagonist arc to just leave out that.
Well, and it's also interesting, again, speaking of how much they're cramming into this episode, that there's like a lesbian relationship, which again, for even for the comic is definitely not something you'd ever see, but in on the HBO show, it's something we've had very, very little of, if any.
But they didn't play it up for laughs.
No, they didn't. It was just kind of a throwaway thing.
It was which I kind of like, because it was for especially the early 90s. It was just like a normalized thing. They just happened to be lesbians. They didn't, go over the top with it. It was just it wasn't. I don't think it was necessary to the plot. It was just there, which I actually kind of like when they do stuff like that, because especially in the 90s, that's very progressive. Because if you watch like early 90s stuff, when they do have lesbian characters, they go over the top with those characters to try to like, oh, look at us, we're trying to talk to this culture. Whereas this one is like, no, it's a normal thing that just happens in life.
I think I have an alternate theory. It might have been written in just to provide that line that Parker has later about he says, it's gonna take a lot more than a lesbian vampire biker horror to ruin my day.
Yeah, I hear what Mando said. What you said is the progressive thing to do and to think of it. I don't give the show that kind of credit at that time on HBO to think that way. I think it was just a throwaway thing they put in to sexy it up a little bit.
The rotten teeth didn't help, though.
When you mentioned that line, that might have been the reason. That line might have been the reason. Like someone had that line on the whiteboard, and they're like, "We're fitting this fucking line in."
All season, they keep tacking it up to every episode of Tales from the Crypt for a season. They're like, it doesn't fit.
It took them 13 episodes for this season.
I mean, half my job on this podcast is trying to bait Jason into saying some line that I've already figured out a week in advance that I want to make him embarrassed with.
Your
called a payoff.
Bear thing didn't work on me.
I tried, but that was not premeditated, sir. I'll tell you that. Like, my premeditated stuff usually lands. That's where I get the red face and the red. Yeah. If I get the red scalp, that's my goal. Like, if I can make
or you can get me the walk off camera.
I'll get you walk up. Yeah, but that was an accident, and that was
that was Whitney. All right, I'll hop in. I like this episode, especially for this season. I think it was just a little bit different enough, since at this point in the series, everything's been so samesies. And also this gave me a little bit of the Thing vibes.
Yes, good call.
Which I liked. Those cocoon things were amazing. They're so gooey, and like it was almost like an alien egg, like the xenomorph egg, but like hanging from the ceiling instead of hanging.
Yeah, still kind of had a bat quality to it a little bit.
Yeah, so I thought those were super fucking cool. But yeah, we've already said most of the things. Michael Ironside is always a good time, and this is where I like to run through the talent a little bit. This was directed by John Herzfeld. He did a movie called Two of a Kind, which starred John Travolta and Olivia Newton. Kind of after Grease, kind of trying to hype up on that. He also did another movie called 2 Days in the Valley.
I remember that.
Yeah. He has a really cool acting resume. He was in Death Wish, he was in Cannonball, he was in Cobra. So he's kind of in those, like, manly action movies. Let's see. Parker is played by Bruce Payne, who was in The Howling 6, The Freaks, Passenger 57, Warlock 3, The End of Innocence.
He's only in movies with numbers in the title.
Yeah, exactly.
I like Warlock 3. I'm just gonna put it out there.
Highlander, Endgame, and I think it was the 2000 or maybe 2001 of Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, the
bad one.
Yeah, is that the one with Jeremy Irons?
I think so.
That's
yeah.
Someone. Yeah.
And then we have
Irons, I think, with the Wayans brothers, or one of the Wayans brothers.
One of the Wayans brothers. Vivian Wu, she was in The Last Emperor. She was also in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, the one with the time travel. And she was in the Joy Luck Club, and she's been in a ton of things. Susan Tyrrell, she seems like a character. I would have loved to see more of her, find some interviews or something like that.
She is great, man.
She was the lead role of the mother in The Butcher, Baker, Nightmare Maker. It was like
that's a gross ass movie.
I love that movie so much.
If you want to see it, you should go to her Wikipedia page.
Mm-hmm.
It's a picture of her from Camino Real, and it is the coolest picture. I'm just gonna say she looks cooler than any human has ever looked in this picture.
You seen the Forbidden Zone?
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, but probably not in over 20 years.
Yeah, that's a nutso art. I guess art movie would be the way to describe it. Her and Hervé Villachez.
No, yeah, maybe I haven't seen that. Maybe I have.
It's fun. It's trash. It's like 60s psychedelic stuff, you know.
Yeah, you had me at trash. So I'm in.
She was in Angel, the one with the was it the Schoolgirl by Day, Streetwalker by Night movie. She was in my personal favorite, Crybaby. And
Oh yeah,
I love Crybaby so much. She was also in Poison Ivy, The New Seduction. Speaking of trashy series with many sequels.
I definitely remember renting that based on the cover alone. I was gonna say.
And of course, we all know Michael Ironstein's Ironside, not Ironstein.
Ironstein, did you hold on a second?
I wish my last name was that cool.
Maybe he's into bears. Like, you can make this happen. Like,
There we go.
like, if you guys were a celebrity couple, though, you'd be Ironstein.
There we go. All right. Starship Troopers, Total Recall, Top Gun, Scanners, most recently in Barry, but let's not forget he was in Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2, which is like the funnest title to say.
Yeah. Also one of his more interesting roles too.
Yeah, it's a little more than his normal shtick.
And by the way, have you guys seen Barry?
Yes,
I need to
Barry.
sit down to start watching it.
Freddie, are you caught up with the new season?
Yeah, I just watched the latest episode today.
I'm gonna watch it probably after this podcast, but like the last episode,
okay.
No spoilers, but holy shit, is that Barry is one of those series where you look at it makes you look at Bill Hader in a whole different light.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that as a positive. Like, he's just proving just how great of an actor he is.
It'll make you look at TV differently too, because it's one of those shows where
yes.
It's like Atlanta. If you watch Atlanta, is very similar, where you don't know from week to week what show you're really gonna get. You might be getting a comedy, you might be getting an action movie, you might be getting a drama. You don't know until you start it. And this episode is so different than the last one. The whole series is like that. It's nuts. Like, if you don't watch, if the other great, I think Barry and Atlanta are probably the two most ambitious shows on TV. Atlanta did a whole episode that was a fake documentary about the making of a Goofy movie.
Holy shit.
Like the Disney movie. And that's,
really?
It was just, yeah, you tune in one day on Atlanta and it's none of the characters or anything. It's a fake documentary about the mystery behind the disappearance of the guy who made a Goofy movie. They make this whole fake Disney thing. It's insane. It's insane.
I've never seen Atlanta, but you've just sold me on Atlanta.
I know. I didn't watch that.
Atlanta's another show that genre bends. It'll go into horror sometimes out of left field, and you're like, whoa. And it's intensely horrific stuff. Like, and then it'll go back to being a comedy. And like, it just keeps you off balance completely all the time. I love that feeling.
And not to keep getting us off the rails, because Jason's giving me that look. But he's giving that. Ooh, that's a bear look right there. Do that again. Never do that again. Another show that did you guys watch Beef on Netflix yet?
Oh, not yet.
I haven't watched that yet, but I've seen it.
It's good.
It's A24. And when you first start watching, you're like, is this A24? By the end, you're like, holy shit, that's A24. And but the same thing, it goes to a lot of different places I would never have expected. No spoilers, obviously. But a wonderful show that I think that like everyone should watch Beef.
This is why great writers are important. The WGA stuff. Hopefully this works out for them.
Yeah,
we'll see. But
just reading about the WGA, they're talking about how they shut down production on the new season of Evil, and it cost them. It basically, someone was doing the math on Twitter saying that the money it costs the studio for the lost production time would immediately cover all the demands of the WGA.
At least, well, temporarily, obviously. Like their argument would be, we'll run out though, but
in years,
it's a good
years
argument. Yeah, it's a great argument. Like, it really does. It illustrates how greedy people are on the top.
It really is. And it sucks because if you guys watch Silicon Valley, the whole joke in Silicon Valley was getting to the 3 comma club, where you have 3 commas your net worth. And the joke behind that was like, it's never about the money. The money at some point becomes a number, but they want 3 commas in their number to say they're better than the next guy, which is really shitty because, like, you know how it goes. Like, those fucking we're with you guys, writers. We are with you guys. Like, like get your piece of the pie, man. You guys deserve it.
All right, back to this episode. The Thing with vampires and Michael Ironside. That's how I sum it up. All right, let's talk about the comic comparison. Jody sent me the comic. So it has a couple of the same concepts. There is a guy who's going to Alaska with his two buddies, and they're looking for uranium. So they have like a Geiger counter, whatever you call it, and they're kind of flying their plane, and they find an area that is highly irradiated. So they go to an Eskimo colony nearby. That's what they're calling it. But they find a vampire coffin in the middle of the snowdrift that's frozen over. The quote Eskimo guide freaks out and runs away, but they find a cabin nearby to hold up. Because then one of the guys gets the idea that if he opens the vampire coffin, he can kill his two other guys and he gets the full shares of the uranium mine. So he does that. He kills off the other two guys. Then he barricades himself inside the cabin, waiting for the sun to come up, only to realize that it's not coming up for another couple weeks. So there's nothing in the cabin. So he realizes his choices are die of starvation or die by vampire.
Man, that's much better than the episode.
I mean, again, but that would be a 5-minute. If they did this way, it'd be like 5 to 10 minute episodes. So they had to put some other stuff in there, and we got some
Fill it
cool
out.
effects. But it's got a very basic same concept of, oh crap, I can't get away from this vampire because
they recite. Do you feel like they went back to this well in the comic in particular, maybe like 10 times? The vampire town or the general stranded at sundown setup, which I'm not a critic of it. I actually really like that setup, but I do feel like,
I mean, this was like the best of those that are coming to my minds. I mean, again, at this time, you don't really have as many like established monsters. So yeah, you're gonna go to the vampire well,
yeah, it's just like there's a very comforting familiarity to the way they handle a vampire story. It's like there is an EC kind of vibe about, when you're reading an EC vampire that you're like, oh, this is a cycle thing. They like to drop the hints. They like to hide the vampire for a reveal. Usually, I think they rarely go in like you're dealing with vampires on the first panel. You don't usually find out until near the end with a lot of their stuff, and I love that. That's one of their sticks,
Yeah. And this is from Haunt of Fear number 26. I don't have the year in front of me, but it was a while ago. Let's just leave it at that. All right, so let's move on to our episode rating. We do 0 to 5, 5 being the best, 0 being the worst. You can do half points. Freddy, you're our guest. You can start us off. What do you rate this episode?
I'd say 3 for me. A solid 3.
All right, Mando.
The more we talked about it, kind of the more I liked it. So I'm gonna go 3.5.
Yeah, I'm going 4. I don't know. This one just kind of hit me in some nice ways. I love a good snowy, like barren snow setting. I love The Thing, but I'm not like it's my favorite movie, but I love it's such a great movie. So this, again, thinking of The Thing with vampires is just kind of warms my cockles.
The only way this would have been better is if it would have turned out that the dog was Vampire Zero.
Or a dog just made it totally Zero. The Thing.
Yeah.
If you're a big fan of The Thing, there's an HBO series. I don't know if you've seen called. It's not The Rig. It's very similar to The Rig. Oh my God. I've got to figure out what the hell this thing is called before the end of the show so I can tell you, but it's a murder mystery. It's very much it's a kind of a nod to The Thing, but it's a serialized murder mystery. It ran 2 seasons. It's called The Head. The Head.
Oh, okay. I've never seen that.
It's very, if you like the style of The Thing, it's an Arctic research outpost, but instead of it being the monster movie, it's just kind of a murder mystery, but it follows The Thing beats, and they even watch The Thing in the first episode. It's so great.
Nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely need to check that out too.
All right, Mando, hit us with your song of the day.
Ooh, okay. So I picked a song from I don't think I've done this before, and if I have, then whatever. We're just gonna have 2 weeks that are the same because I haven't updated that spreadsheet forever. It's a band called Witchery. Witchery started in the mid to late 90s. I think 97 was their first record. Started by a couple of guys that were in. They have a history of bands like one of them was in At the Gates. The main songwriter and guitar player and singer was in The Haunted. If anyone's into Swedish, I guess melodic thrash / death metal. But they released a record in 2017 called I Am Legion, which is common when you hear that term used for like vampire. I mean, the term I Am Legion is from demons in the Bible.
Yeah.
But kind of common when it comes to vampire mythos. And off that record, they have a really great song called Dry Bones, which is basically saying like, once we kill you humans, you'll just be bleached dry bones. And
so it's not a cover of them bones, them dry bones.
It is not a cover of them bones. Which whenever someone says them bones, I can hear the riff in my head. Like it's impossible not to hear that riff. But one reason I love this song is because in the middle of it they have just a great classic thrashy. And they're kind of a death metal / thrash metal band, I guess you can call them. Just call them a metal band, whatever. And but they have a really cool just like breakdown in this that just makes you want to bang your head. And I challenge you to listen to the song and not want to bang your head to it. So a great band, going back to like I said 97 when they released their first record. And they're kind of considered like one of the early super groups before things were really super groups, or before super groups were really a thing. But they kind of release a new record every 2 or 3 years. And I think they released another record, Nightside, a couple of years ago. But this one's a good one. So the song is Dry Bones off the record I Am Legion by the band Witchery.
Nice.
I kept it kind of brief that time, right? Wasn't?
Yeah, no, that's good.
Have you heard Hate Beak?
Yes, I know exactly who Hate Beak is.
That kills me. I learned about them the other day. A friend, I'm in a music league where a friend put that in there, and it was like, this is a parrot vocalist, and I'm like, and I'm listening. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, holy shit, that is a parrot singing.
So there's also a band that came out around the same time called, I think it's called K-Ninus. And basically, yeah, the guy would give his pit bulls like a chew toy and record them going like, and now it's his death metal vocals.
Oh my god, I wish I had thought of this shit, man.
I always tell people when the common thing I hear from people that like, how do you listen to that stuff? I can't understand them, and I think people forget this about a lot of vocals, but vocals should really be an extension of instrumentation.
Yeah,
I don't give a shit what. Well, I do care what they're saying if they're being like misogynists or racist.
right, yeah.
But it's not really about the lyrics a lot of times. It's about like how the vocals just fit with the music. So if you want to give a dog a chew toy and have him growl to your fucking metal, go for it. It's awesome. It's creative. Do it.
Super creative. I love it.
Awesome. Thank you, Mando. Since Jody hasn't joined us, I'm looking up some horror news.
I got you. I got stuff.
Got me. Okay, hit me.
I don't know if you talked about it last week, but Renfield and The Pope's Exorcist and Dungeons and Dragons all hit streaming this week.
Yes, I watched both Renfield and Pope's Exorcist last weekend.
So did I.
Nice.
How were they?
I loved Renfield. I thought it was amazing. I can see some of the criticism, like some of the gang stuff kind of like dragged on a little bit or like just didn't seem to fit. But for a movie, it's only 90 minutes. It's fine.
At no point was I bored. I had a great time with it. I laughed. I was surprised by how gory it was and how violent it was. And also for my Parks and Recreation fans, John Ralphio as the head of a crime gang. Is like, because all I could see him is as John Ralphio's like alternate life.
Right. I love that. I love John Ralphio. What a great character.
Yo, dude, John Ralphio. One of my favorite bits is when he goes into a place to get hired and he sexually harasses someone. And then I go, sir, he goes, I know I'm fired. I'll leave the way I came out.
So how was the Pope's Exorcist? Did you guys both see that?
As an atheist, I love religious horror. I really do. It's just it just kind of hits the right spots. Well, I will say it has this overall really good feeling of doom. I think Russell Crowe is fantastic in it, actually. And then you just have this really weird period towards the end where it's like just goofiness. It just turns into goofiness and then wraps around with some really dark shit at the very end. But this period of goofiness, I have to say, completely took me out of the movie.
Oh, it wasn't good goofy.
It wasn't good goofy, no. Because I think that like they're trying to play this movie so seriously, and they have this part that's just like, and the bad part is it's goofy, but the people that are filming it and putting it on video don't understand it's goofy,
right? Well,
and that's what makes it,
Where Renfield is goofy the entire way, it's firmly in that lane. This like almost goes there,
but it's not supposed to.
when it's not supposed to. Again, as a Jewish person, I love religious horror too. So and it hits like every trope possible. You can like it like checks off like every box, and it has this really bizarre conspiracy thing going on that like is so ridiculous that like you can't take seriously. But if someone ever did take it seriously, is like hugely problematic.
Seriously, I love that part of the movie. I'm like, oh, this is that was a ridiculous thing that I loved when it was like, here now it's fucking Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah, it's.
Do you all, when you meet somebody who really takes like these exorcism movies super seriously, are you usually like,
Yeah.
Oh, you mean my parents?
Oh,
yes. Yes, I'm very much like, you guys are fucking stupid. That's what I'll talk to them.
But I thought Russell Crowe was like, he felt like that youth group, the youth pastor who's like trying to be relatable and funny in a really cringy way. Like,
does he flip a chair around, acoustic guitar?
Yeah, almost just about. He's just like making jokes all the time. Like, it's a really weird performance.
I think I love that about him because he seemed like that old guy that's just so out of touch, and I think it seemed very believable.
Yeah,
that's a sale for me right there.
Yeah, it's worth watching. I'd watch it.
If you enjoy religious horror, I think it's a definite watch.
I have a mixed experience. Like I was a hardcore I loved The Exorcist. I always thought that was a great movie.
Too,
but then I got to a point where I was so burnt out on exorcism movies where I'm like, how are they still making this movie?
Yeah, it's better than like The Last Rite or like the sequel to Last Exorcism. It's better than those. No movie has ever been as good as The Exorcist in that genre.
I go through those cycles, man, where if I've been away from a subgenre long enough, then I remember what I loved about it.
And I'm going to say minor spoiler, but probably not a spoiler, because every exorcism movie has the trope of if you find the demon's name, you'll take away its power. Yeah. And I hate that fucking trope. Because why wouldn't you just get a list of demon names and start rattling them off? Until he goes like,
like a demon like phone book. And
yeah.
Phil Jenkins.
I will say it does have, what was it, Ralph Innes?
Did you say anus?
No, Innes.
Ralph Innes.
The guy from The Witch, the father, was like really cool voice.
Oh, okay.
He voices the demon, which is fun, except a lot of the dialogue is really, really cliche.
Yes.
A lot of these demons aren't like, they don't go hard enough on the demon dialogue.
Well, it's kind of like once you've already done that demon dialogue with The Exorcist, what do you do after that?
Yeah,
everything else is going to sound cliche compared to that
or
original.
Just like edgelordy.
Yes,
that's what I liked about Exorcist 3 was the Gemini killer got to like it gave that character something else to do besides say like things about the priest's mother and everything, you know.
Well, that's why you get Brad Dourif. I mean, come on, he can.
He's so great.
He can read the phone book and scare the shit out of a demon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jay's appliance repair.
Two things I want to bring up. One is that the Meg 2 trailer came out today.
It did,
and it actually looks kind of good. I was really disappointed with the first one because I didn't feel like it went hard enough.
Same.
And this one looks like it starts off with dinosaurs. I'll just say
cool. I loved the book. I remember reading the book and thinking like this guy's really trying to one up Jaws as hard as he can, and the idea of him coming out the shark coming out of the water and eating the helicopter at that one point. And then that's all I wanted to see after I read the book. When I heard they were making the movie, I'm just like, it's gotta jump out of the water and eat a helicopter.
And then in sad news, Bill, I'm not sure if I'm gonna say this right, Basso passed away. He's an effects artist from movies such as Tremors, Prairie 2, Jurassic Park. So tribute to that guy. He did some amazing work.
Well, I had a couple other not sad notes.
Okay, go ahead.
Mike Flanagan signed on to do The Life of Chuck, which is a adaptation of a Stephen King short story, and it's going to star Tom Hiddleston and Mark Hamill.
Ooh,
cool.
There. Isn't he doing the Dark Tower though, or is he like on hold?
I don't know.
That's the rumor, is that he's going to be doing that. Yeah, I just started watching The Midnight Club. on Netflix, the Flanagan, the Christopher, is it Christopher Pike, I think?
Yes,
Got the co-writing credit. But a friend of mine was like, oh, it's kids in hospice. And he's like, so I couldn't really watch it. It was too depressing. I started watching the first episode. For a show where a bunch of kids are in hospice, it's pretty upbeat.
Yeah, I watched. I watched. Obviously, love Haunting of Hill House was phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't
Midnight
watch
Mass is great.
I didn't watch Midnight Mass, and I watched the first episode of Midnight Club and really enjoyed it. And that's as far as I've gotten. There's
That's where
so
I'm at.
much good. There's so much good stuff to watch right now. It's really hard to keep up with everything, but I really should watch because Flanagan is pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, if you're a fan of Salem's Lot, Midnight Mass is the closest thing I've seen to like an accurate Salem's Lot kind of movie almost.
Well,
That sold me too.
Salem's Lot remake should be coming out soon. They keep pushing it back.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that book.
Mando, what else you got?
Oh, just one last one. Another upcoming Norwegian Christmas horror film coming out this year called "There's Something in the Barn."
Ooh.
It has been described as Gremlin meets Home Alone meets National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Okay.
So I just saw a tagline and said, I'm in. If
there's any truth to that,
that's all I need.
I hope they're snooty neighbors like Julia Louis-Dreyfus and her boyfriend. And they get terrorized by the gremlin.
Or I just see them watching their neighbors just get mutilated and being all judgmental about it. Like, oh, he should have used the chain, not the rope or whatever.
Why is the carpet all wet? I always think of that line whenever I think for some reason on Christmas Vacation, I always think of her. Why is the window broken, Todd? Why is the carpet all wet?
I feel like YouTube has kind of gotten rid of the nosy neighbor because everyone's got something to do to be stimulated. You don't have to watch your neighbors anymore.
It's true. That's right. You see more crazy stuff on YouTube of other neighbors like fighting each other physically over whatever bullshit.
Yeah, I think my neighbors across the street have started getting the skateboarding, and they're all like in their 40s and shouldn't be skateboarding.
That's YouTube gold right there.
Well, dude, like that's what I mean. Like, I've been debating putting a security camera out front of my house, a PTZ, just so I can fucking see when one of them just inevitably breaks a limb on a skateboard.
Yeah, and then you can send it to the ridiculousness.
See, it makes it, and I also don't like them, so it also helps too because they're annoying. One guy, I think I've ranted about this, has decided to pick up the drum kit. Decided to play drums. So, if you're a kid and you're playing drums and you suck, dude, fucking A, man. Like, I have no problem with that. Like, fucking play drums, get better. When you're an adult and you have to play with your garage door open so the whole neighborhood can fucking hear you, and you still can't fucking count to 4 apparently because you don't know what a goddamn 4/4 beat is, you can go fuck off.
All right,
at least invest in some soundproofing.
So yeah, let me ask this, since I've got 2 musicians,
and he hasn't. It's been 6 months and he hasn't gotten any better. How do you not get better at something in 6 months?
All right. Since I have 2 musicians at my disposal, how about this? Are like the electric drums worth it? Like the ones that you can like just plug in your headphones?
Without question.
So great. The newer ones are so insanely great. I wish I could afford. They have like combo acoustic electric ones.
Yeah.
There are like it's like $8,000 or something for
dude.
A set,
some are crazy expensive.
Well, I see like Guitar Center has like $300 kits because my son.
Those are nice.
Whenever I'm somewhere and my son sees his drum kit, he just wants to go big on it. So like I want to encourage that.
I'll send you a link to the one that my drummer has that he uses to play around his house because it's like a $400 set. It's a nice set. But I think one of the cool things about those electronic kits, especially for kids, is I think one of the drawbacks if you're trying to learn how to play drums is everyone has to hear you suck.
Yeah.
And especially for younger people, if they can play to themselves and don't have to worry about the criticism of someone else telling them not whatever, I think it's really helpful in them learning how to play and learning how to get good at drums.
That's the beauty of having an autistic child. They don't care if they what anyone else thinks about their playing.
I love it. That's good.
Yeah. Also, he's doing it that's the purest thing in the world. Like he's literally doing it just for themselves. Yeah. Which is like I recently returned to playing music after like not doing it forever. And I'm finally at that point for the first time in my life where he's starting. Where I'm like, oh, I don't have to follow the rules. Fuck the rules.
Yeah, so I know enough music theory to get by, but like the guitarist I was playing in my band, Louis, he's a classically trained guitar player. and he loves playing with me because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So I just come up with weird ass like chord combinations. He goes, "That shouldn't work, but it works." So I'm like, "Yeah, that's why it's fun."
Yeah,
I think deep down he's like, "Idiot."
No, there's like you can train, but there's like something about the spark or whatever that some people have like an innate creativity. I think that I've known guys that it's that Solieri syndrome or whatever, where they know everything, they can execute everything mathematically, timing and everything perfectly, but they have no soul whatsoever in it.
Yeah, one of the best guitar players ever lived is Yngwie Malmsteen, and the guy can't write a song to save his life
because he's not feeling it. Yeah, he's memorized it. He's not feeling it. Yeah,
technically one of the best players ever, but the dude, in my opinion, can't write a goddamn song to save his life. He'd argue with that statement, but he'd be wrong. Based on his album sales and how many people like him, he'd be wrong.
Yeah, he's not connecting.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Patreon pit. So we'll go through our weekly Would You Rather question. Our question was, would you rather be stranded in a barren desert or in an Arctic tundra? And by barren desert, I mean like the Sahara. Because people were arguing about that in the comments of whether the Arctic is a desert or yada.
Oh, right. Yeah, the very technical definition.
Do I die of hypothermia or do I die of thirst?
Yes.
I'm dying of hypothermia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same, man. I hear it's painless.
Yeah, you just can go numb and just pass away. That's
comfortably numb, as they might say.
Comfortably numb. There you go. Our Patreons, however, were split on this 50-50. Some people said, I have to go with the cold. The sun is my enemy. And Whitney also said she hates being cold. So I guess some people don't like being cold.
No, I hate being cold, but I have to think of it in the context of I know I'm going to die in one of these situations. And I think I hate being thirsty more than I hate being cold.
Same. Man, this is exactly how I feel, Mando.
Yes.
The thing is, I like being cold. I'd be like, okay, I'm in my zone here.
Yeah. I was gonna say you are thirsty too, Jason. So I was gonna say like
us bears.
Are there bears? Are there bear cubs too? Is that a thing?
I think so.
Cubs is a thing too. Yeah, it's just a young bear. It's not as elaborate as what you think. I'm like I shouldn't speak on these. I'm not gay myself, so I feel like I'm not. If I get anything wrong, I apologize. But for some reason, most of my close friends are gay. I don't know. That's life worked out that way for some of us.
Yeah. All right, and then to finish us off for the evening, we usually do dad advice. Freddy, you're a prolific podcaster. What do you think is the secret sauce?
Oh, consistency is the secret sauce for podcasting, and also for lawn care. Yeah, lawn care, podcasting.
You can also do some dog dad advice.
Oh yeah, give us some dog dad advice.
The dog dad advice I would say is tell your dogs you love them every day. Hug their necks. Always show them kindness, but above all else, let them be dogs. Let them be wild when they can be wild and eat food they're not really supposed to have sometimes.
My wife was having a bowl of cereal, and our dog like jumped up and started slurping it, and now he's like obsessed with milk. I'm like, this is my wife and kids drink a lot of milk. Every time anyone has like a cup, he is all over them.
So my Chihuahua loves beer.
Oh,
and
yeah.
This is my fault because back in the early 2000s, like 2009, 2010, when my buddy started a beer blog here in Vegas for craft beer, whenever I'd open a new beer, I'd let her take a sip of it. I didn't think anything of it until when I got home. At the time, I was working weird hours. I was working for Apple. So I got home around midnight and my wife was already asleep. And I sat on the couch and turned a movie on and cracked a beer. And I hear dump, down the stairs. And she fucking woke up in the middle of the night because she heard a beer can open or a beer bottle open. And I was like, oh, you have a problem.
That's funny. Like these are the first dogs I've had that are not like that because I haven't given them beer. I've never given them that because I don't really drink anymore. Yeah, but they love it, man. Dogs, almost all of them. And we nursed a sick dog back to health on beer once because she ate too much on Thanksgiving because everyone kept feeding her and she made herself sick. And because we didn't know, like, the dog's playing everyone against each other.
Yeah.
So everybody's giving the dog food. But we used beer for like 3 days after that to get her back to where she would start eating again.
Damn, that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy. I also read dogs become alcoholics like really quickly. Surprise,
Really?
surprise, they have very addictive personalities. Where they're just
I'm glad I don't contribute to that anymore. I've
No, so I was
given
pretty
them
sure-
enough bad habits.
I was pretty sure at one point she was an alcoholic. I was like, oh, I just can't give you a drink now for a long time. And to this day, if you open a beer and she notices, she'll sit there and just fucking like stare into your soul. It's like, you have to give me a drink. She's also super food driven too, which doesn't help, but it's I don't know. I love dogs. Dogs are the best.
Yeah, they're best.
They
My
are.
dogs love popcorn.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I've had
That's
that.
a good treat.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good human foods you can give dogs and share with dogs. It's just funny because, like, I don't know if you guys like this. When I'm eating something, dogs staring at me, sometimes I'm like, oh shit, let me Google, is this okay for dogs to have?
I do it all the time. Yeah, we keep that stuff up all the time, and I'll even feed them with a fork sometimes. Like if,
Oh, me too.
if they're I'm just like, here you go, have some of this. I don't need to eat off the fork. I'm not disgusting.
If you did, I wouldn't judge you because that's like your best friend. You love that thing.
That's true, but I've seen them eat some pretty horrific things.
I've seen so dogs love cat turds. I happen to have cats too. Cats are the worst. I wish I didn't have them, but I happen to have them. And but the one thing, I see my dog eat a cat turd, I'm like, it's fucking disgusting. Why'd you do that? But then, like, the other day my cat vomited like a hairball. My dog ran to eat it and I almost vomited.
Ugh.
I was like,
Yeah.
for somehow that was more disgusting than eating a cat turd. I'm like, you're gonna eat hair that the cat vomited up?
But you got to admit, it's like secretly convenient. Both of those behaviors where you're like, I haven't had to clean the litter box all week.
No, there are times like I'll like hear a rustle in the litter box because it's in the other room, and then I'll look and I'll see both my cats in the ottoman. I'm like, God damn it, Abby, because my chihuahua's in the litter box, so I just having a good time.
Oh.
We used to call our old dog, her name was Lucy. We'd call her Scarface sometimes because she'd come into the living room when we had cats, and her nose would be covered in cat litter, but it looked like she had been doing cocaine, because she was all over her muzzle. And we're like, oh, Scarface is at it again, which meant eating cat turds.
God damn it.
Yeah.
I love them. I would. I always tell my dog Abby, because she's the worst dog. She's the best. I love her to death. I would die for her. But I always say, Abby, you're the most okay dog I've ever had. Because she's so smart. She does all the bad shit in the world, like knocks over trash cans, all that stuff. I'm like, but I would still die for you. Like, I would literally die for you. But if I was dying on the floor, you would fucking eat the sandwich out of my hand before you try to call for help.
See, that's the funny thing is I got one right here who's been hanging out.
Oh.
Hey, Elsa, look up here. Elsa, look. She's so uncooperative though,
Oh,
man.
She's
a
camera
yellow
shy.
lab.
She's camera shy.
Yeah.
It's fine.
She's been my companion in here since I came in here. She's a good dog.
Are there any podcasts about dogs, Jason? Can you look this up? Can you do some research for us? You're an organized guy,
Yeah,
It's
sure.
gonna be
I
all
gotta Google.
anybody wants to listen to from now on, though.
right? Like just dog. What's up with dogs?
It's
Dog
gonna be a
talk.
dog podcast.
Like I just
Dog
want to get
pod.
guests on to show me their dog, and that's it. That's one. It's a coup. It's a big ruse for me too. It's not a coup. A coup be if I came to Pasadena and killed you and took over the podcast.
Right. Great. I'm looking over my shoulder.
Which now that I've said that, if Jason turns up dead tomorrow, I'm like,
I know.
damn it. But
The perfect
Maybe-
crime.
maybe a big ruse just to get people to show me their dogs.
All right. Well, that wraps up another episode. Freddy, thank you for joining us. Where can people find
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well, as a composer, if you just search Freddie Morris, it's Freddie with a Y. I'm on all the streaming services. I just re-released I just became a full-time composer about a year ago, and I
Wow.
just
That's
remastered.
awesome.
Thank you. And I just remastered and re-released one of the early tracks I did called "The Arrival of the Witch Queen." So if you stream that, like I said, anywhere you get music, and that's kind of like a score to like an imaginary movie, because that was kind of how I was
Oh, it's kind
kicking
of like
things off then.
Is this kind of like hi-fi?
Yeah, very much. Like, yeah, exactly. Me and Eric, we kind of like we're a support system for
Right.
each
That's
other's
awesome.
independent music stuff. So it's very similar. My stuff is a little more wacky, less
I like
dancey.
wacky. I like.
Like check it out. It's a lot of like I use a lot of I like to use sound effects and samples and like trying to create like an experience, you know. So like there's that, but then there's Night of the Living podcast, which is the big thing since 2006 in my life. And Horror Hound Radio is the other place to find me, which is less frequent than the Night of the Living podcast. There's one of those episodes like twice a month on a good month. Nice. And that's Nathan Hanneman and Aaron Kroll and Jason Cretton are also involved with that. They're the writers and publishers for Hound Magazine. Okay. And we talk about
I love
all kinds
of
stuff.
Magazine.
Oh yeah, we I sometimes write for them too.
Okay.
So I have an article coming out soon. I did the Horror Hall of Fame for Demons.
Ooh.
The Bava Demons, yeah. So yeah, I've had a lot of fun with those guys over the years.
Is there a reliable place to find that? Because the independent bookstore used to carry it and they don't anymore. At least
really? I think subscriptions really I get mine in the mail.
Okay, I'm gonna have to just re-up my subscription. Because I like going to the independent store and just browsing and getting that, but
yeah, like here in town, it's everywhere. But
I think since COVID, they just haven't had it.
Yeah, and I think they may have changed printers somewhere in between too. So it kind of, distribution might have been affected by that. But I know Borders used to be a surefire place. If you have Borders books and music anywhere near you.
Barnes and Noble, I think, has it from time to it's been a while since I've been there. I've seen it, but I think they do mark it up a pretty good amount versus subscription, which is cheaper.
Okay.
Yeah, subscription is the way to go.
Here's the question though. I don't know if you can divulge, but on your Demon Hall of Fame, is the collector in there?
Well, this is the movie Demon specifically.
Yes.
Bava, Lamberto Bava's Demons.
Okay, I get it now.
Yeah,
I thought it was like of all demons.
One of my favorite soundtracks. That soundtrack is so fucking good for that movie. God
killer.
damn.
It's a big part of the article too. Like, cause it's insane. Like who they got to be on the soundtrack.
Yes.
Considering how weird the movie is to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
It's an Italian movie filmed in Germany with a bunch of international rock acts on it on the soundtrack. And it's a movie within a movie. Before that was really a common thing.
Yes.
It was meta before meta, and it was gooey and gross. And maybe one of the best horror movies ever made. That and Demons 2, both wonderful.
Dude, they're both so good.
Yeah,
so good.
There are others in the series, but the official. I always think of the first two, but there are several others they made that kind of belong to the Demons. But I always think of the first two as the main.
Yeah, but the other ones though didn't have any Bava involvement. So
right, they're kind of a grab bag. Well,
yeah,
I mean, it's
was he a producer?
I was gonna say the Italian film industry in like 60s through 90s was like one of the most incestuous.
Okay.
Like there's so many like if you're a producer on one film, you're a director on another, or vice versa. You're a writer here. It seemed like their community was a lot of almost like, I always got the impression they were doing stuff almost like apprenticeship type stuff where you would see like a back and forth, like a give and take of they were learning every aspect of making movies. And then it just seemed like they swapped. But a lot of this is just like word of mouth and stuff I've ever heard over the years.
No, it makes sense though. It makes total sense.
Yeah. It's an interesting era and place for film.
Okay. Well, thank you again. Next week we will be reviewing, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, 99 and 4/100% pure horror. We appreciate everyone for listening. We really appreciate it. We would really appreciate if you would give us a rating and review on iTunes, a rating on Spotify. Check out our Patreon for bonus content, and check out our YouTube channel for videos of these podcasts. And with that, we thank you for listening to Dads from the Crypt.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch. But be careful what you ask for. You may get it.